Behind me are all of the core Mercedes-Benz SUVs. Now, missing from this lineup is the GLS. We'll get to that later. One of the requests that I've gotten is not just to see the exterior, the interior, the cargo space of these cars, but also how do people fit inside of them, right? Now, I'm 5'11", so I would consider myself to be slightly above average height, but I think that I will be a good test subject here to demonstrate the fit of all of these vehicles, especially in the second row where people are curious, what kind of room are my passengers going to have, or for taller drivers, how much room is going to be behind the seat. So I've gone in and adjusted all of these cars to a comfortable position for myself in the driver seat, and we will see what kind of room there is behind me. And I also have a car seat, so I can show you kind of what a car seat would look like in each one of these cars. Now, before we get going, let's start with a quick interior tour of these vehicles. This is the G580. This is a beautiful Dakota Brown Magno, and you can see that the G580 and the G-Class in general has an interior very unique to the G-Class, right? There is nothing quite like the G-Class interior, although it does have the dual side-by-side screens that we know and love from Mercedes-Benz. Now, the G-Class, although a big and boxy truck, does not have nearly the second row legroom or the cargo space that our GLE and GLS have. So this, as you will see, is going to be a tighter fit, and for taller drivers, there is limited room behind that first row. Onto the GLA, we've seen this before. The GLA and the GLB are going to share a very similar interior. These would be considered our entry-level cars, and then you can see what kind of room you have behind the front seats based on where I have the driver's seat adjusted to. Next we go to the GLB. Now the GLB, a bit boxier than the GLA. The passenger seat quite a ways back. Now, fun fact about Mercedes-Benz, our seat controls are on the side of the doors. And of course, anytime Mercedes-Benz does something that is different from the rest of the industry, I always ask our engineers and trainers why that is, and I usually get a very good answer. This one, because by putting it on the side of the door, you are able to adjust the seat from standing outside of the car with the door open, as opposed to having to bend down and do it here like it would be for most manufacturers. And we will show you now that you can see even a little bit more space behind the first row in the GLB. Continuing on the row, we have a GLC. This happens to be a GLC 43 AMG, but it is no difference in size from a 300. And again, we are going to move our front seat up. You can see that the capacitive controls here and the interior is more in line with what you see in the S-Class. So we take a step up in fit and finish and luxury when it comes to the GLC. I've got my seat adjusted there to a comfortable place. And here is the room in the GLC, pretty comparable to what you find in the GLB. And again, shortly I will sit in the interiors of all of these so that you can see exactly what kind of space there is. And then moving to the GLE. Now the GLE and the GLS are going to have identical space in the first and second row. So until we need to get to the third row, we don't have a need for the GLS at this moment. But this is our GLE interior. The GLS would be the same. Our seat controls on the side of the door here. We're going to move that seat up just a little bit. And here is the room in the GLE, and we've got quite a bit of extra legroom here. Now, if you were to option a GLE with the optional third row seat package, then you would get power seats in the second row as well. But without that third row package, these are stationary. So now we're going to go back to the beginning here of the row, and we're going to sit in the second row of all of these SUVs so you can see exactly what kind of space we're dealing with. So getting into the G-Class here, you can see, and I'll need to put my headrest up. So here I am sitting, again, I am 5'11", and I would say I do have a comfortable amount of space behind the first row passenger, but anybody that was quite a bit taller than me, they might have to bring that seat back, but I can stretch my legs out a little bit, and I would say there's adequate space here, although it is not cavernous. I can touch the seat in front of me pretty easily. Now we're going to move on to the GLA. Here I am inside of the GLA, and I would say pretty comparable room to what we had in the G-Class. So I've got the seat in a comfortable position for myself, and there is decent enough legroom back here. And you know, the GLA being our smallest SUV, it has kind of a hatchback roofline towards the back, but I've got good vertical space. I still have a good, you know, 4 inches maybe of headroom between me and the top of the roof there. Pleasantly surprised by the space in the GLA sitting as a passenger. Moving on to the GLB. What's cool about the GLB is that the GLB does come standard with an adjustable second row. So I have a little pull system down here. I can move it frontwards and backwards depending on whether or not I want to increase trunk space in the rear. Probably no reason for me to have the seat forward, and I've got a lot of space here. I can stretch out my legs completely underneath the front seat, and a lot of room in the GLB. So the GLB is a deceptively spacious vehicle, and again, I have even more headroom here, probably another 4.5, 5 inches of headroom to the top. Now granted, neither the GLA or the GLB that I'm sitting in have a panoramic sunroof, so that panoramic sunroof is going to drop your ceiling down just a little bit, and you'll lose about another 2 inches of headroom in a car with a pano roof. And a lot of them do have it, just these two do not. So moving on to the GLC. So in the second row of the GLC, I don't have an adjustable seat here. I do have decent space. Now this car does have a panorama sunroof, and from my head to the pillar here, I've only got about maybe 2.5, 3 inches. If I move to the center, of course, I've got a lot more clearance, but if you're sitting on the edge, if you're a very tall person in the torso and up, you could, you know, potentially be bumping your head there, although it is a pretty flat roof line, so it feels very spacious and open inside of this interior. But I've got a decent amount of room. I can't stretch out my legs the way I could in the GLB, but I think that for an average to above average height person, you're going to fit very comfortably. Of course, if you have kids in here most of the time, then they should fit very comfortably in the back of the GLC. This one's even got heated rear seats. That's something that you don't see all that commonly in the GLC, but there's our button for that there. So let's move on to the GLE, and this would effectively be the GLE and the GLS as well. I have my seat in a comfortable position as the driver, and when I get into the second row of the GLE, I have a cavernous amount of space, and this is without the third row package, so I don't have the adjustable chairs here. But as you can see, I can almost stretch out my arms completely to touch the seat in front of me. My feet can go all the way stretched out the seat below me. So the GLE has a very, very spacious second row, as does the GLS. And great headroom here as well. So this car does have the panorama sunroof, but even from my head to the pillar here, I've got probably more like 3.5 inches of headroom there. Just a great, spacious, open interior inside the GLE and the GLS, especially for those first two rows. And as we will demonstrate shortly, the GLS even has a nice third row that is usable for adults. I wouldn't want to be back there probably for a long period of time, but it is not an unusable third row like some competitive models have. Now we have an idea of what kind of room there is in the second row, but what about when we get a car seat in the mix? What kind of room do we have then? All right, so now we're going to see what kind of room there is in the second row when a car seat's involved. Now this is going to be a rear-facing car seat because they take up more room than a forward-facing car seat. We'll start with the G-Class. I get this question a lot. Can car seats fit in a G-Class? And the answer is yes, but depending on how tall the front passengers are, some will fit better than others. Right, so this is a pretty average position for that front seat, and as you can see, it fits, but it is coming up against that second row, or that front passenger seat there. And I'm going to show you where, if I was the passenger in this truck, where I'd be sitting. So, you know, comfortable. If I didn't have a car seat behind me, I might scoot the seat back just a tiny little bit. But in order to give that proper room, I would leave it here. So in the G-Class, it's definitely tight. Once you're flipping that car seat around to a front-facing, a lot better fit. Onward to the GLA. Are we going to be surprised by how much space is here? You tell me. So into the GLA. And again, we're kind of just coming up onto that front seat there. We don't want it to be touching, so we're going to move this forward so that it is flush. So now there is no contact, and you can see where I would be sitting. So definitely a little bit uncomfortable in the GLA if I was sitting here to accommodate a seat behind me. Not so bad in a front-facing seat, but a rear-facing seat, it's a bit of a squeeze. So something to consider. Now, how about the GLB with our adjustable second row? So as I demonstrated to you before, the GLB does have an adjustable second row. Now we're going to fix this passenger seat here. All right, so now we have no contact. And actually, it's still pretty tight. So this might be a bigger car seat than I realized, but I'm not saying that people don't push their seat back into the car seat, but I am demonstrating it the way that it's intended to be, which is you shouldn't have any contact between the seat and the car seat behind it. So actually, as I'm sitting here doing this now, obviously I'm just putting this in here, I'm not really installing it. If I actually have it flat on the seat the way that it should be installed, that's creating about another 2.5 inches here between the seat and the seat back. So let's just move this seat back a little bit so you can see where it would more likely be. Right, so we would have no contact up until that point there. That's where the seat would be installed safely. And now I definitely have a little bit more usable room in the front row. Again, I'm about 5'11". On to the GLC. All right, what kind of space do we have here? Again, let's see. So this would be flat there. You can see there is a gap between the car seat and that front seat. So let's see what kind of space I have up here. And I would say I actually have quite a bit more space. I can stretch out my legs entirely here, much more comfortable. So the GLC kind of deceptively more spacious than either the GLA or the GLB. And then finally, we look at the GLE, and as I demonstrated to you before, the GLE and the GLS in the second row, extremely spacious. All right, this is flat. We have no contact there between the seat and the car seat when it's flat. And this passenger seat looks like it's all the way back, or quite a ways back. And again, I can fully stretch out. The seat back is actually way in a reclined position. In fact, that was uncomfortably reclined. So I'd probably be sitting something a little bit more like this, and plenty of room now behind me in that second row. So there you have it. Look how much clearance I have now. So the GLE, I often will tell people, if you have a growing family and a little bit of a larger family, maybe you need 2 car seats or more in the car, this is where a lot of people will turn, because it really gets to be quite a bit more spacious. And especially when you factor in the trunk, this one has all kinds of floor mats and charging cables, etc. But we have a nice deep trunk, a lot of vertical space. So the GLE is kind of like the Goldilocks family SUV for us, for most. So here we have the GLS, which is our only third row standard vehicle from the factory. Now, because the third row is standard from the factory, the GLS does have power seats for the second row. So you can see that these can be, looks like we need to get this one on a battery tender, but you can move that second row seat front and back, and you're going to have very comparable legroom as you would to that of the GLE. But let's take a look at the third row. Now, in this particular GLS, we have the captain's chairs, which gives us the pass-through in the center. And so it is definitely tight back here, but we can see that we've got the second row seats about all the way back. My knees are touching. Now, if these were pulled forward just a little bit, there would be a decent amount more room. So it's not that the third row is small, right? That adjustable second row definitely can give you more room back here, but it also helps to have the pass-through that gives one of your knees some room to spread out. And for kids, it works great. For adults, it can work great for short stints of time, meaning that maybe the second row passengers have to be a little bit closer to the front than they would like. But we do find that either in 6-passenger configuration or 7-passenger configuration with the standard bench, that most of our clients are happy with the space that the GLS provides them. Hopefully you found that helpful, displaying just how much room there really is in the second row of these vehicles when you've got somebody who in my case is 5'11" sitting in the driver's seat. My name again is Doug with Benzs and Bowties. Please make sure that you like and subscribe to this video for more content like this, including dealership behind the scenes and general automotive content.